Okay, so I'm kind of just taking over where I left last time. We've been discussing disorders of Agni, and then all of you had chosen a disorder to talk about in forum. So if you haven't started, which nobody has done so now, can you please start putting the one disorder that you had chosen and talking about it in the forum, please? All right, so let's get started. So we're going to talk about a few more disorders that we didn't talk about in the last two classes. So we're kind of still right, really talking about all the disorders and digestive disorders have one common thread. It is basically vitiated Agni, and it's when we talk about Agni, there's 13 types of Agni. We are only concerned with Jatar Agni that is in your stomach. So I'm really not going to go deep into it because we don't even really test you in it. Uh, I just want you to know the difference between celiac disease and gluten intolerance only because there are people out there, they use celiac disease is a very serious disease. It's almost like autoimmune reaction. It's a very serious inflammatory reaction to gluten, and there's destruction of the villi in the intestine. That means that it stops absorbing vitamin A, D, E, K, calcium. So it's a pretty, serious disease, and they might have certain antibodies for that. It also affects the mind. So celiac disease is completely different from gluten intolerance, and the only reason we made the slide was to let it's a completely gluten intolerance is if you have gluten, it causes you to, you know, be a little bloated, feel a little heavy, but it doesn't harm you. But it's not in the sense that it causes a little discomfort. So it'll be a good idea so celiac disease would be more, it is not so much an Agni disorder. It is an Agni disorder, but it is to do with the body's ability to, it's really an allergic reaction to gluten. And gluten intolerance is the discomfort with gluten. Because there's people out there, they'll just throw the word celiacs. It's there are people out there that even if they touch celiac, they'll have a really bad reaction. It kind of depends on what kind of antibodies they have, but anyway, just to let you know, these are two different things. So how do you find out if someone has celiac disease? There's something called antibody tests that are done, and then biopsy is done, and a small bit of tissue is removed from small intestine. And then, of course, they do blood tests for alkaline phosphatase to detect bone loss. And then, of course, what is the treatment? You go gluten-free. Now, that is a completely different, and gluten-free is it has become such mainstream thing, it's all over. Now, I try to, personally, because I'm a kapha person, I try to eat less gluten and more barley or rice or whatever. But it doesn't mean that, kaphas are intolerant to gluten. It just means it causes discomfort and they should avoid it. So just to let you know, these are two different things. And because in celiac, what is happening, in the vitamin and mineral supplements have to be given because it is chronic malabsorption. There is a correlation, people have killed themselves and done suicide. There was a very famous case in UK that it gives me the chills. Shujan, I don't know if you remember, it's the woman with the celiac disease. She had a baby and she killed herself and the baby. So, it was crazy. She was super antidepressed, and she did not know that she had that. Yeah, I don't know if you remember that, but anyway, there is a huge people with the celiac. In fact, you know what? When digestion is affected, now this is a complete extreme case. When a person has celiac or irritable bowel syndrome or irritable bowel disease or anything that is happening, any pathology in the GI tract, it is not just about the GI tract. Remember, GI tract is connected to your nervous system. And that nervous system in the GI tract is connected to your central nervous system. So if there is a problem, a chronic issue in the intestine and Agni, it's going to affect your mood and it can cause depression. I had one woman who came to me. I treat people with, let's not use the word treat, I help people with adjunct supplement support of Ayurveda all the time. And I get a lot of women with um, you know, constipation. So there was one lady and she didn't even tell me she was, because people think, why do I need to tell? This person is an Ayurvedic practitioner. Why do I need to tell them my entire medical history? They don't need to know. And that's very common. They won't tell you. So you kind of have to probe them. So nowadays I kind of make sure that I know their entire history. But she had chronic constipation and then other issue. And I told her, what do you want me to do in this session? And she said, well, I'm so concerned with constipation. I do not want to do laxatives anymore. My food just, so this woman was going to the bathroom once in 5 days. It was really chronic. She did not have cancer. It wasn't any medical issue at all. But she was also on, SSRIs and antidepressants. And and she also got chronic migraine, which she didn't even bother to write in the form. And she just mentioned it. She said, I have those issues, but I know we just have 1 hour to talk. I just want to, constipation, I really want that. I just feel crazy. I feel like, oh, my stomach's bloated all the time. So we give her herbs and we change her diet and we do some Ayurvedic massages. And then I give her take for 2 weeks and then I'll meet you in 2 weeks. So we did a couple of things and then she comes back in 2 weeks or 15 days. And she said, you know what, Monica, not only is my constipation better, I haven't had a migraine in 15 days. And I think I can talk to my doctor about reducing my antidepressants. Plus, she was not on any sleep medication, but she used to take herbs for sleep, and I'm sleeping better. She said, I don't even care about my constipation right now. My migraine is gone. So apparently she would get a migraine every week, and it would last 2 or 3 days. So just to give you an example, and if I could, tell you about so many clients, they come for constipation and the headache is gone, or their nausea is gone, or, because there's stuff that they're holding on to. And I kind of suggested she go and talk to a psychologist as well because I felt she was holding on to some mental, emotional issues, which was making her constipated also. So, just to reiterate that I'm not going to talk about celiac disease so much, except that celiac disease is, a vitiation of Annavahasrota, so GI tract. And so, of course, it's all about Agni and Ama. So we will give them and how many foods can you give that are gluten-free? The entire South Indian repertoire of food, you have rice cake, idli, you have, oh my God, there's so many things. There's tapioca, there's cassava, there's so many delicious things you can do. So this is irritable bowel syndrome. 1 in 6 people have symptoms of IBS. It's very much connected to your psychology. And I mean, once you start seeing clients with IBS, you will notice that people with IBS have a nervous disposition sometimes. So you will notice with a Vata, Pitta, and Kapha person will not have such a Kapha person with IBS will probably have symptoms when they're traveling or, their routine is disturbed. A Pitta person when they're irritated, literally irritable bowel syndrome, and when they're irritated. When a Vata person has IBS, when they get nervous or anxious, then they will show symptoms. It's very much connected to their psyche. We do try to avoid, I had one very, very Vata client, very textbook Vata, and she, I was working with her and she was doing very well. And she would say, well, I went to the park and then there was she went to SeaWorld and there was a slide, those roller coaster stuff. And I saw the roller coaster and I got nervous and I just had to go to the bathroom and I was just going to the bathroom again and again. So that's kind of, an IBS thing. So she said she could eat cheese. So she could have this Dutch, how the Dutch and European cheeses that are super hard, almost like a rock hard. She could tolerate it, but she could not tolerate milk. And she could tolerate yogurt for some reason, because it's to do with her mind and because she was Dutch. So she had told her mind that I would be okay with Dutch things because she's Dutch. So yeah, because it is related to your mind. But of course, unfortunately, antidepressants are prescribed. So what I'd go for IBS, what I do is I want you to look at this. right here. There's 3 type of IBS. So every time you see an irritable bowel syndrome, like I said, in a Vata person, it'll, and a Pitta person, Kapha person, different gunas will be seen. Let's see, there's a question here. Any question? I thought there was a question here. No question. Okay. So again, every IBS is again a vitiation of the GI tract. The idea is there's low Agni. So Agni is low. Accumulation of Ama. And Pran is disturbed. So emotional, mental symptoms. Also, so when Pran, where does Pran reside? The Pran resides on the top of the head. Pran also resides in the brain and the nervous system. So it's a combination of disturbance of Prana in the nervous system, Agni and Ama. That's what IBS is. So this is why, let's look at the mental symptoms first. In Vata type of irritable bowel syndrome, they will be doing very well and they'll get anxious and fearful, and these symptoms will exhibit themselves. Pitta will get irritated or angry, and these will exhibit themselves. Kapha will, Kapha will just even sleep a lot, or, they will travel, or there's, like I said, if there's a change in the pace of their life, because they're creatures of habit and routine. And if the habit and routine, a Kapha person, it might exhibit, then they've changed a home. So you have to be careful. And look at the symptoms. In Vata type, constipation, bloating, weight loss, feeling cold. But constipation, there can also be some diarrhea as well. Pitta type, heartburn, loose stools, can also have constipation, but mostly loose stools. Foul smelling stools and inflammation. Kapha type, the stools have a little bit of mucus, sluggish bowels, and heaviness. I want you to look at all those 3 and just read it one more time and ask me any questions if you have, because this is kind of important. But Sujan, because your kapha, when their routine is disturbed, they have to ground themselves. Kaphas are not like Vatas who will instantly travel and they're ready to just go out. Yeah. Just you have a reason. You have an exit. I'm kapha. I need my sleep. Yeah. Anyone? So we will not go into a lot of diseases and talk. IBS is one of the things that we discuss because we are going into Agni. But if you look at it, it doesn't mean Vata person who has IBS will not have diarrhea. They can have a combination of constipation and diarrhea. But mostly, if you look at all the symptoms, they'll have constipation will be the big picture, bloating, weight loss, feeling cold, anal fissures, and a lot of anxiety. So even if there's other symptoms of diarrhea, just focus on the main symptoms. And Pitta can have heartburn, loose stools, and a combination of constipation also, right? Just to let you know. It's not like textbook. So what do you do when a person has this issue? Obviously, for Vata person, you balance Vata dosha with the Vata diet, Pitta with Pitta, and Kapha with Kapha. However, there's some things that can be done equally. You want to avoid, and obviously you want to tell them this is, ideally you want to avoid all kind of, if they're insisting, I'll let them have eggs or I'll let them have fish. But if they're really that bad and it's a really bad IBS, I just tell them absolutely no flesh at all, no animal-based food. I kind of just take it away. But if they cannot do without it, then I will let them have fish or egg. But pretty much, my focus is for the next 3 weeks, be vegan. And it's pretty hard to do that for a couple of weeks. And then when they reintroduce these things, then introduce it only when they're not traveling, and introduce it only in the lunchtime. That means dinner time, they must be a vegetarian, right? Processed foods, I immediately, whole grains and all their dals and everything should be, I actually have given fermented foods. As Marina, you're from Russia, so there's a lot of fermentation done in Russia, right? You look, fermentation of potatoes, fermentation of whatnot. Also in Korea, fermentation is done. So fermentation is not bad for some IBS patients. Exactly. Yeah. For chronic constipation, not just Triphala, to answer your question, Marina, so Triphala with hot milk and ghee is one thing you would use. And if a person cannot tolerate hot milk, and obviously with IBS, you cannot give milk because people may be lactose intolerant. So Triphala with hot milk and ghee can be given for general. And even then there is a problem. And then of course, we're talking about 3,000 milligrams. And of course, they should eat prunes, and they can have some like cognac root or prune juice also. So something. So, 3,000 milligrams of Triphala with hot milk and ghee, prunes, cognac root, prune juice. This is Vata Anuloman, bring Vata. But obviously for IBS, you will not do that. If they are lactose intolerant, you cannot give hot milk. You want to avoid in the diet, this is generic, also cold foods. Like I said, I give fermented foods to some of my Vata clients, and they do very, very well with fermentation, but not the Pitta kind of IBS. Very light meals like soups, and not the American soups with cream, like the light brothy, like a Chinese soup or a miso soup without the like low sodium miso soup. Um, Obviously local produce, fresh, and everything should be cooked ideally, unless they can tolerate, because even with an IBS, you will see that the strength of the digestion is different for everybody. You also want to reduce ama if it's present. Ama, if the tongue is very, very white, like super white, then there's ama there. Protocols to pacify aggravated doshas, fennel for loose stools. For loose stools, you can give pomegranate juice. You can give raw green bananas, plantains, and yogurt. If Triphala is not working, we have to make sure that it's not something else. So if someone has been using laxative for a long time, let's say they've been dependent on prescription grade laxatives, then Triphala is not going to work with them. It is not going to. Then you're going to have to give some heavy duty herbs. I mean, then let's say if I have a client who has been taking really super heavy grade laxative, in fact, that works if somebody is on very heavy duty sedatives like anti-epileptic or sedative drugs, and then they go to or Xanax or something, and then they stop it with the help of the physician, and then they come to you and say, oh my God, I'm taking all these herbs and they're not working, because these things change your brain chemistry and body chemistry. So herbs are like, the prescription drugs are like hitting a person with a sledgehammer, and herbs, whether they're Ayurvedic herbs or any other, is like hitting a person with a paper, little feather. So it's not going to make a difference. So in that case, if they are on certain laxative drugs, you slowly work with the physician, they slowly reduce the prescription drug and they slowly increase the herbs, and it has to be a reduction. Does it make sense? And when I have people who have chronic constipation, I give them senna, which is basically a purgative laxative, and it's a little bit harmful if used in a small amount. And I let them use, milk of magnesia and something, and also give Triphala, and slowly we increase Triphala and decrease that. It's a Yeah, that's exactly. In that case, so when the stools are hard, they need to be softened up. Then Triphala is not going to do anything. Then you basically that person needs to do bastis with oil and take grita. So Triphala grita. Also like Abhay Arishta can be given, Senna. But like I said, I'll do senna only for a few days and very small amounts, and then increase Triphala. And because what magnesium does is it's basically breaking down the hard stools, right? Triphala is not a laxative. All it does is it scrapes your intestines gently. But if there is a big ball of hard, dry stool kind of stuck in the gut, it's not going to come out. So you need to break it down, right? So what we call bhedana herbs. So senna will break it down. A hot milk with break, but it'll take some. If someone's used to it, it takes a long time. They doing bastis with oil. Bastis are enemas are suggested, and also a diet which is very rich in essential fatty acids. And then on the top of that, triphala with hot milk ghee. And I would say continue the magnesium, but slowly reduce the amount in that case. Make sense? And you have to remember that, this is just a general thing, till I have the prakriti, vikriti, the strength, age of the person, whosoever we are talking about, these are just generic things. It has to be customized for everybody. Is it kind of falling into place? Because, we've been talking about Agni for the last 3 weeks or something, so what is Agni? There's 4 states of Agni. Well, how Agni is manifesting and getting vitiated. So one of the things, you don't have to write this essay. This used to be an old homework. Okay. So one of the challenges that you will see is that getting people to, as an Ayurvedic counselor, that the problem with the Western world is we are very, very used to convenience foods. Now, unless Shujan, you, Satya, me, and I'm sure Marina, you, growing up in countries like Russia or India or UK, I don't know where you grew up, especially with the Asian household, we are used to, like my mom, she had me, I got my first cooking lesson in 4th grade. By the time I was in 7th grade, if my mom was sick, or we of course had servants, or the servant didn't come, or the servant was sick, I was not only cooking for my family, but also for the servant who got sick. And yes, men were not supposed to do that, but yeah, and by the time I was 16, I was enrolled in cooking lessons so I could bag a good husband and cook for the good husband. Indian, Chinese food. Anyway, so, and then of course they forced me to take home science in school, but that's kind of like, you're used to it. So when I came to the West, and the first country I went and lived was in UK, and I was a little surprised with the restaurant culture. And it's a culture. It is not about that, let's get out and do something. And then all the, nowadays there's some, still restaurants that are nice, but it's all BS. The stuff they're cooking, the environment in a professional restaurant, they're yelling at each other. And the food is absorbing all that yelling, and they are cross-contaminating. I'm not talking about physically, but they're cooking, even if you're ordering something vegetarian, they're cooking with this. I mean, I don't know. There's just, especially the Indian restaurants, they, it's all about the Indian, Asian restaurants. Unless you get a really good one. The best ones that I find are where a mom and pop place where a husband and wife and the children are running the show. So they kind of cook like home cooked meals, and that is a different thing. They're cooking with love. But otherwise and then when you eat the food with that energy, it is really bad for you. And then they're not eating the best oils. They're using that saturated fats, which will go and, cause cholesterol in the body. So anyway, the other thing is go in a supermarket and buy ready-made salads or whatever. That is another. But if you can get people to cook one meal a day with natural ingredients, then it is basically justified your existence as an Ayurveda counselor. I had a clients who came from Canada, and just Canada and UK people don't pay for going to doctors, right? So she was quibbing about the $60 that I was charging for a consultation. Like, she was like, oh my God, you're so expensive. I said, are you kidding? People charge like $200 for this. I'm charging $60 for like an hour. And then she stayed for an hour and a half. Anyway, the whole time, she was a professor, her husband was a professor. They had breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the university cafeteria. Now, granted, university cafeteria had some salads and stuff that was good, but they were not cooking anything at home. And all of the issues were to do with that they only had food from outside. So I could convince them to cook one meal at home. And then at that time, this Blue Apron and stuff was not out. And then eventually they contacted me and said this has actually improved their relationship as a couple too, because now they're spending more time cooking one meal at home. And yeah, their health improved, their symptoms improved. They didn't go away, but improvement was there. And one thing that, when I tell people, oh, for example, I want you to avoid gluten, I want you to avoid this and that, why don't you cook with mung dal? They're like, what is that? I want you to cook with this, use ajwain or use this. What is that? So I have my kitchen and my office right together. I have an office at home. And I always have my kitchen prepared. When my client comes, I'll, show them all the spices, and sometimes I'll give them a cooking lesson. And they love it. They love the cooking lesson. Convincing the client to be, I mean, the thing is, in our Austin, you could do that. Not every city allows that. In Austin, you can work from home. Convincing the client to be more conscious and mindful when eating and to take in foods at certain times of the day. So now, unless you yourself have been in a situation where you have a job and you juggling, working, driving, reading, paying bills, and now we are saying, food and be conscious, how are we going to do that? So this is my advice to you. Take the, for example, I think I've told you before, find out if you're like whatever region you're in Dallas or you're in New York, right? So Marina, are you in New York City or New York State? Yeah, so find local farmers market, take pictures, get their cards, find local places where, and so this is what I do. I mean, I know all the local restaurants. So I have a list of local restaurants. I have a list of, things. But of course, Austin is a very, you have Whole Foods and then they deliver and whatnot. And London also would be super easy, Satya and Shujan. I mean, that area, it's filled with, vegan is a big thing now. But instead of don't tell your client, go find a healthy place and eat something healthy. That is not what they've come to you for. It is your job. You go to the local Whole Foods market or the local vegan market or the local pub, and you check out what they're selling. So this is what, for example, I found out while I was doing my research. For people, I wanted people to give up coffee. So I found a drink called Ticino, and it's awesome, and I'm happy to advertise it. It's basically, it's just it uses carob and it uses chicory, which has a little bit of coffee-like taste, but they're herbs. And it has barley and dates, and it's basically like an Ayurvedic drink. And it's a coffee substitute, but they don't know that. I know that because I check their ingredients. So I actually have this Ticino sometimes. I will make it for my clients who I want them to give up coffee. So offer them alternatives. For example, they say, well, I don't want to make soup. Where do I buy soup? So tell them, go to this restaurant, it sells pho. Oh, I don't want to buy gluten. Okay, how about you go to the local tortilleria and buy some, corn tortillas? At least that's what's available here. So it is our duty as counselor or practitioners to find out where we can send them. It is not their problem. That's why they've come to you. You are the one who has to do the research, and you have to have like farmers market who's selling. Maybe you want to. I don't know if the Blue Apron or all of these places are also in UK, but here it's very, the ready-made meal thing is a big thing now. So that is getting people to cook at home. And another thing is don't expect your client to change immediately. It's not going to happen. 5 out of 10 clients are never going to come back because they think but you have to follow up. Before I used to follow up, the school took over my life, I used to follow up with all my clients all the time. Now I kind of follow up once. And many of them come back in 3 months or 6 months, and many of them never come back, or, so it is what it is. But if you follow up with them, they will come back. And one of the things you say that if you come to me for one consultation, I'll charge $100. If you come to me for 2 consultations, I will charge $101. So they might as well come for the second consultation, right? So you kind of make it easy for that. So you can say, I'm going to charge you this much whether you come for 1 or 2, because I want you to comfort. So, you can have packages like that. I mean, if you're going to do this professionally. This is just some chutneys made by our students. This was raisin chutney. This could have been, for some people, they don't like big chunks, but so you basically take a masher, like a potato masher, and you mash this, and this will have a really lovely consistency. This was another by Nandini, like a mango chutney. It looks more like a salsa, doesn't it? But it's cooked salsa. And this is ghee. And so, if you buy a coffee filter and put your melted butter on top, then it makes a beautiful ghee. And this is kashaya. You don't have to make it. I'm just showing you it's a kashaya. Don't worry about this. Is when you take hot milk and you basically boil things in it, it's called a kashaya. Now you will get this question a lot from your clients. They'll say, hey, how about if we boil it in almond milk or coconut milk? That doesn't work. They might as well do it with water. But if they really hung up on almond milk, it doesn't matter. It's only milk, it works. Better you convince them if they can have ghee, because ghee has no milk products at all, because all the milk has been removed. But kashaya, almond milk is not a milk, it's a nut. No, I don't drink milk. I'm mostly vegan, but when I am sick, I'm going to have a kashaya because that's the only way the herbs are going to work. Does it make sense? Milk is cow's milk. There is no such thing as almond milk, coconut milk, nut milk. Those things are nuts. Literally. So you want to give them ghee instead, or ask them to take it with some kind of oil or just water. This is another kashaya, which is it's like a tea with fennel, cumin, cinnamon, turmeric, cardamom. So it would be really, really nice for a vata person and a kapha person, vata kapha. Yeah. I would reduce cardamom and add rose sugar. That'll be better for the pitta person. This is an Ayurvedic soup. Just some khichdis. Now you see how thick this khichdi is? You don't want to give thick khichdi to a person who's really sick. You want to make it, there's different consistencies of khichdi. See how it is this is a normal consistency. This is a dry consistency. And you want to do a very watery consistency also sometimes when person's Agni is really bad. Okay? Very quickly, one more and then we are done. And then this would be our last class 4. So we are just literally just reviewing this. And the thing is, even if I talk about it, it is something that you have to learn. And like I've told you, these are some things you actually have to memorize. So this, if you look at session 6 in the AC 102, there's 6 folders: session 1, session 2, session 3, session 4, session 5, session 6. So today was session 6, and you will find this in session 6. We have discussed what Pancha Mahabhutas are in AC 101. You know, sweet is earth and water, sour is earth and fire, salty is water and fire, pungent. If you don't know it, just memorize it. Basically, you need to memorize it. So earth and water is kapha, earth and fire is kapha, earth is kapha, fire is pitta. So sour is harmful for both of them. So we've already covered this, just a quick review. So you know, and you should know, and if you do not know, please print this out, memorize it. Sweet, great for vata pitta, aggravates kapha. Sour, great for vata, aggravates kapha. And also aggravates pitta. Salty aggravates kapha pitta. Pungent aggravates, this is wrong, it aggravates kapha plus, yes. Kapha plus means it's good for kapha. So you should know what is all the doshas, what they're good and bad for, so you can, review it in our slideshows. You can review it in the manual or textbook of Ayurveda. It is given in all of those. And these are examples of food. You already know this. Just very quickly, you know what V minus means? What does V minus mean? So when you print it out and you're learning, what does minus minus means? So minus means that it is good, that it is balancing. Minus signs denotes balance. Plus signs denotes aggravation. Okay? So whenever you see, so minus minus is good. Minus is good, minus is good, plus plus not so good. It aggravates. That's what it means. And these are examples. Again, you know, this is not, I can talk about it, but you are the one who have to learn it. I'm just telling you, this is something kind of you really need to memorize and take away. Like I said, we'll be off in July for a month. You have one more class to go, and then we are off for an entire month. And then we meet in July. So this is a really good time to go back, review, print, and I will, if you have any questions, you can put it on the forum after July 21st. I will be available to answer your questions on the forum. This is a kind of interesting slide, and I'm not sure if we have done this before. So one of the things, remember, sweet is what element? Sweet is earth element, right? Because it is earth element, and earth element is part of kapha, because of that reason, it's building tissue. It is calming nerves, right? That's kind of important, what it does. And of course, this is all the same thing, examples. And if you look at naturally salty, it also has earth, but it also has a little bit of fire in it, right? And because of that fiery quality, even though salty also has a little bit of earth, but it has fire, the fiery quality of salt is, what does fire does? It cleanses, it removes. So it cleanses tissue. Look at the sour. Sour also has a little bit of fiery quality, improved tastes in food, stimulates digestion. Pungent is pure fire and also air, right? So again, it stimulates digestion. Astringent is air and, bitter is air and space. So look at, because of the air quality, it absorbs water. Think of astringent as like a wind. It tightens tissues, dries out because it's air. Bitter because it's air and space. The space part is lightening tissue, the air part is detoxifying, which is why to Vata person, we are not giving astringent, pungent, and bitter because of that air, space, air quality in them. So go through this, download it, look at it, and do not expect you will know this by reading it. Stick it in a wall, go back, read it again and again and again. And at some point it will sink in. I mean, you still have a good 9 months to go before you graduate from the program. So this will eventually sink in, but this is kind of important to, because these are the things that you would be giving to your client. So I would say, this is kind of almost like a study aid. Print it out and keep it in a file. And when you start seeing clients, you can kind of think of it as a cheat sheet. Just open it. You don't have to let your client see it, and note down all the things you want to give a client. Or just print this out, and let's say you have a pitta client, right? And you want to tell your pitta client, eat this and eat this and eat this. So tell them just, and do not eat the sour and pungent and salty. This is, you can just literally print this out and give it to your client. Okay? So we've kind of made it easy for you, so you don't have to start writing things. All right, so we are done with our class, and I just want to look at all the assignments, just go over the assignments for July. So think of it as a July homework assignments. And so Satya, I had given you feedback about that Shatavari, right? You got it. Let me just opening it. You had done the women's support. Yeah, so you do not want to give Shatavari for bleeding, stopping bleeding, uterine bleeding. Shatavari will increase. In fact, if one of the causes of bleeding may be, but otherwise everything was correct. I was just giving you a few more ideas. Yeah, that was just the one thing. Okay, let's come here. So this is your, let me switch role to student. So today we did session 6. We have covered all the sessions now. It's from our end, AC 102 is finished. So we just need from your end, and your homework 1, if you have not done it, and this is, I'm recording for those people who have not done it. Oh, sorry, homework 1. Was this quiz. It was due May 20th. And then there was a forum discussion. It was either what is the difference between Ayurvedic nutrition or explain to your client, blah, blah, and it has to be done on the forum. That was number 1. Shujan, if you can start doing it, please, that would be nice. Homework 2, quiz. If you've already started sharing with me, that's fine. I'm going to start actually grading the AC 102 quiz with my assistant starting next week. So next week is all about the grading. Then the second was create an Ayurvedic My Plate and also quiz 2 on fruits. And quiz 3, homework 3 was do quiz 2 and quiz 3. And create either a kitchen spice mix or create an Ayurvedic chutney. This you can just, you are on WhatsApp. Just make a kitchen mix or chutney and just share it on the WhatsApp. That's fine. Oh, that's not due Feb 28. I'll remove that. I'm sorry. My mistake. Then quiz 4, homework. Okay, that's homework 4 is the longest homework. It basically is, I'm going to change it. Basically, the part 1, I'm going to change this. The part 1 of the homework is choose one Agni issue and discuss it. Remember, I'd given it to you in last week. And the second is do quiz 4. And the third is, let me just show you. So this is homework 4. Please choose one topic and talk about it, right? That's part 1, and part 2 is quiz 4, and that's it. So I'm going to change that. So we know all the homeworks. And in AC 103, there is that workbook. There's a Tridosha's workbook. We already finished quiz 1 in class. I did a class test last time on Thursday, right? So Shujan, Marina, were you there on Thursday? Rabia was there. So Rabia, you were there. So yeah, I already graded people who were in class last time. So we did quiz 1 from Tridosha's workbook. So the rest of the quizzes, Satya, you've already been submitting those quizzes. Yes. Yeah, so you can do it. That's fine. Yeah. I've got your women support quiz, but yeah, the quiz 1, we already did it, but now just don't bother giving it now. Just finish the rest of the entire Tridosha's and submit by July 21st. Marina, I've been getting all the stuff you've been giving, and I'm going to give you some of the scores I already gave you, others I'll be giving you. I got your My Plate. It was very well done. I gave you feedback that you want to probably give more yogurt as part of the milk and dairy. So yeah, everybody's doing well. And so make sure July 21, you finish all your assignments for AC 101, 102, and 103 and submit by July 21. So that's plenty of time, right? So Rabia, I have not been receiving anything from you, so please start doing that too. Are you on it? Yeah, because then we're going to have to send you a letter saying you are not passing, which I don't want to do. So because July 21 is the end of the, yeah. It's plenty of time to finish it. Yeah, plenty of time. Yeah, and then August 5th, when the classes restart, the classes are going to be on Saturday morning, not Sunday morning. Okay.